Hi, today we are going to learn about leap year. Now, what is a leap year? A year is said to be leap year if the year is divisible by 4. So if we have years like 2012, 2016, 2020, they are leap years. Why? Because simply they are divisible by 4. So we'll make a note of that also as we understand its definition. So year which is divisible by 4 is called as a leap year. But there is some exception. And what is the exception? That any century which is divisible by 400 is also a leap year. For example, 1600 or 2000 or 2400, even 3200. This all years will be leap years as they are divisible by 400. So all these centuries which are divisible by 400, that's why they are leap years. Now, in the definition, it is mentioned that a year which is divisible by 4 and centuries which are divisible by 400, they are leap year. So if you take examples like 1700, 1800, or even 1900, or let's say 2100, these are not a leap year. Why? In spite of being centuries, okay, we know 1700 is divisible by 4, 1900 is divisible by 4. In spite of them being centuries, they are not divisible by 400, and that's why they are not a leap year. And any other year is not a leap year. Why? Because it's neither divisible by 4, it's not a century divisible by 400, hence any other year is not a leap year. Examples could be anything 2021, 2015, 2010, etc. All these years, they are not a leap year because they are simply not divisible by 4. So let's keep this in our mind and write out today's program. Okay. So first, we'll be writing our question. And the question is, write program to check a user entered year is a leap year or not. All right, so that's the question. Now, we have written over here that user will be entering the year. So for that, let's create a variable. Name of the variable is user, and we will ask the user to give us an input. So making use of input function, we'll write enter a year. Now we know that the data type of this input will not be integer. You can check that. How? You have to make use of type function. So we'll write print. And what do we want to print? Type of variable year. So try and run this program. Let's say I'll give year 2021. And as you can see, the data type of this variable is string. It is not an integer. Okay. Even you can try to know the data type, whether it is integer or not, by doing one simple thing. That is, let's say we'll add 1 or subtract 1. Basically, try and apply arithmetic operator on this value. You'll get an error. Try to apply addition subtraction. You will get an error. So you know 2021. Now after I press enter, it should have given me 2022, but it will give you an error because it says cannot convert int object, which is 1, to string implicitly. Implicitly as in internally, it cannot add 1 to a string data type. And that is the reason we'll have to convert user input into integer value. All right, so we'll comment our two statements which we have used for testing the data type. So here I can put this whole input function inside an int function. So first it will take an input, then convert it to int, and then store it in year variable. Let's try and run this. 2021, enter, and now you can see here we have data type of year is int. Okay. Now, what do I want to check? I want to check whether this year, whatever user is entering and which is getting stored in year variable, whether it is a leap year or not. So we'll keep these rules in mind and then decide whether a year is leap year or not. So first and foremost thing we have got from this code is it should be divisible by 4. In that case, I can make use of an if block, check that if I try to divide this 4, will I get a remainder as 0 or not? So basically what are we trying to perform over here? We'll be using divisibility test by 4. Now, this is the mathematical term to use, divisibility test by 4. So here modulus, percentage symbol is used to find the remainder. So here modulus 4. If it is equal to 0, then I can say that that particular year is definitely a leap year. So let's try and run the program. We will purposely give, let's say, 2024. So we know that 2024 will be a leap year. All right, fine. Now, if I try and give 2021, we know it's not a leap year. We are not getting any output. Why? Because we have not mentioned anything. So year, which is not divisible by 4, straight away I can write that that particular year is not a leap year. So simply copy this and add a word not. Let's try and run the program again. Give 2021 as an input and we get 2021 is not a leap year. We know that this year we only had 20 days in February. So this is not a leap year. All right. Now what about other examples? What if I put 1600 or 1700? For sure, you might be thinking that 1600 is divisible by 4. So it will give us the value as it's a leap year, which is good. All right, enter. 1600 is a leap year. But if we give input as 1700, it still gives us that 1700 is a leap year, which is incorrect. We concluded earlier that centuries like 1700, 1800, 1900, that is centuries which are not divisible by 400, they are not a leap year. So definitely we have to add some more code in our program. Let's see how to do that. So if we try and divide the year by 4, and if it is already divisible by 4, there is a possibility it will be a leap year, correct? This is divisible by 4, this is also divisible by 4, and this is also divisible by 4. 2012, 1600 and 1700, all three are divisible by 4, but all three are not a leap year. That means before printing a conclusion that year is a leap year, we'll have to check whether it is divisible by 400, whether it is divisible by 100, etc. So let's see. So here, we will check whether a year is divisible by 400 or not. If yes, that means it's a leap year. Okay. I can shift this inside for a moment. I'll just give a century divisible by 400. Let's say 1600. Okay, we got it. 1600 is a leap year. Now, what if I give 1700 as an answer? So for that, we will have to write yet another condition in the if block saying that if the year is divisible by 4, and if it is also divisible by 100, what we will like to say? We will like to conclude that a given year is not a leap year. So let's try and check that. 1600 is a leap year. Nice. 1700, it should show not a leap year. Perfect. And now if I try and put 2020, which we know was a leap year, we didn't get any output. Can you guess why we are not getting any output? Correct. you might have come to a conclusion that we have not mentioned the years which are not centuries but divisible by 4. As in 2012, 2016, they are divisible by 4, but they have nothing to do with 400 or hundreds divisibility test. So for them, we can straight away write that I'll have to now use a else block and say it's a leap year. So if a year is divisible by 4 and 400, example, 1600, 2000, 2400, etc. You can check. This all are divisible by 4. This condition will become true. It will come inside. This if block will also give a true as an output. So it will print that 1600 is a leap year or 2000 is a leap year. Now, if we have years like 1700, 2100, they all are centuries, but they are not divisible by 400. So in those cases, it is going to give us an output as it is not a leap year. And some years, okay, so years like 2012, 2020, 2028, etc. So these are leap year. And the other examples, which are not divisible by 4, they have nothing to do with centuries. 2010, 2015, 2021, they are not leap year. So you can try any combinations of this years given over here. Okay, take any input and you will accordingly get whether it's a leap year or it's not a leap year. So just take any random number, let's say 2300, not a leap year. 2085, not divisible by 4, so it is not a leap year. I hope you have understood this code and the logic. Now, some people also try an alternative method. So we will try that first and see the difference between both. Okay. So they will straight away check that a year which is divisible by 4 and they are going to use two conditions over here simultaneously, and if it is also divisible by 400, then definitely that's a leap year. I'll just copy the statement of mine. If this is not the case, so example like 1700, okay, so in that case they will check whether it is divisible by 4. Yes. Is it divisible by 100? Yes. 1700 is divisible by 4, 1700 is divisible by 100. So in such case, it will be printed as, so 1700 is not a leap year. But now if you still see two more cases to be considered, in that case, again, the year has to be divided by 4. As in, if it's divisible by 4 and only 4, that means it is the user input is 2012, 2020, etc. In that case, it's a leap year. And finally, the else block is used. There we are saying that years like 2010, 2015, 2021, they are not a leap year. If you look at this code and the previous method, you might be thinking that here we have used a nested if else inside an if else block, whereas this is pretty straightforward. Just one nested if else has been used to write the whole logic. The logic is same in both the place. The way of writing the code is different. Now, if I ask you which method will you prefer? Will you prefer method 1 or will you prefer method 2? As per me, you should go for method 1. Why? This might seem little complex in writing compared to the second method, but understand one thing, that again and again here, something is getting repeated, correct? If you're concentrating well, you might have got that an example like 2012. The year 2012 will get divided by 4 over here, will also get divided by 4 over here, and then again it will get divided by 4 over here. Let me just tell you one thing. Whenever a compiler executes any statement and some calculations are involved, it consumes time. You might be thinking, how much time will it take to divide a number by 4? And it's a computer. They're very fast. They're pretty fast enough. True. But when talking about huge applications where even something small like a division operation, which is unnecessary getting repeated twice, will impact your overall code with respect to compilation time. So we don't want our compiler to do unnecessary work of dividing the number by 4 3 times. Instead, just divide it by once. If it is divisible by 4, then go ahead and check for the rest of the two conditions and print the appropriate output. And if at all it is not divisible by 4, just straight away print it is not a loop gate. So that's it. My preferred method would be method 1. But if you think writing the code using second method is more simple, you can go ahead with that as well. I hope you have got the difference between both the methods and you have understood the logic as well. If you have understood the explanation, kindly hit the like button. Thank you.